Welcome to Veil of the Bible, where ancient stories come alive with powerful truths for today. I'm your host, and this channel is dedicated to bringing you the most compelling biblical narratives ever told. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join our community of truth seekers who hunger for wisdom from the ages. Today, we dive into one of history's most dramatic confrontations between human ambition and divine authority. Picture this. A tower so tall it pierced the clouds, built by a civilization that dared to challenge heaven itself. But behind this monument of pride stood one man, whose name still echoes through history. Meet Nimrod, the mighty king who commanded nations and dreamed of immortality. His story is one of power, technology, and ultimate downfall. What drove him to build the Tower of Babel? And why did God himself descend to stop it? Buckle up, because this journey will shake everything you thought you knew about human nature. In the ancient world, after the great flood had washed away corruption, humanity began to multiply once again. Among the descendants of Noah emerged a figure unlike any other. His name was Nimrod, and even as a child, there was something different about him, something powerful, something dangerous. The Bible describes Nimrod as a mighty hunter before the Lord, but don't mistake this for a simple description of his hunting skills. In ancient times, to be called mighty before the Lord meant you possessed power that rivaled the divine. Nimrod wasn't just hunting animals, he was hunting dominion over all creation. As Nimrod grew, so did his influence. He possessed a charisma that drew people like moths to flame. Tribes that had never submitted to anyone willingly followed him. Warriors who had never known defeat bowed before his strength. But what truly set Nimrod apart wasn't his physical prowess, it was his vision. Nimrod looked at the scattered tribes of humanity and saw something they couldn't see themselves. Potential. United under his rule, they could achieve anything, build anything, become anything. He began to whisper promises of greatness, of towers that touched the sky, of fame that would echo through eternity. One by one, cities fell under Nimrod's command. Babel, Erech, Akkad, Calneh, each became a jewel in his growing crown. But Nimrod's appetite for power was insatiable. He didn't just want to rule cities, he wanted to rule the very heavens themselves, and he had a plan to do it. The people loved their king. Under Nimrod's leadership, they had discovered new technologies, built magnificent structures, and achieved unprecedented unity. For the first time since the flood, humanity spoke with one voice, dreamed with one mind, and moved with one purpose. But that unity would soon become their greatest weakness. Nimrod's court was filled with wise men and skilled craftsmen. They had learned to make bricks harder than stone and developed a form of mortar that could bind anything together. These weren't just construction materials, they were the building blocks of rebellion. And Nimrod had the perfect project in mind for them. Late at night, in the quiet of his palace, Nimrod would gaze up at the stars and feel a burning resentment. Why should God alone dwell in the heavens? Why should humanity be confined to the earth? If they could build high enough, perhaps they could reach God's realm. Perhaps they could become gods themselves. The king called his advisors together and shared his vision. They would build a tower so magnificent, so impossibly tall, that it would serve as a stairway between earth and heaven. It would be humanity's declaration of independence from divine authority. The advisors were terrified, but they were also captivated. Genesis tells us that Nimrod was the first on earth to be a mighty man. This wasn't just about physical strength, it was about being the first to challenge the established order between God and humanity. He was the first rebel king, the first to say, "We don't need God," and his tower would be the symbol of that rebellion. As word of the great project spread throughout the land, people came from every corner of the earth to participate. Farmers abandoned their fields, shepherds left their flocks, craftsmen closed their shops. Everyone wanted to be part of this historic undertaking. The construction of the Tower of Babel was about to begin. But high above, Unseen eyes were watching. The God who had once flooded the earth to cleanse it of corruption was observing humanity's latest attempt at self-glorification, and he was not pleased. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change the course of human history forever. What do you think about Nimrod's ambition so far? Was he a visionary leader trying to unite humanity, or a dangerous rebel challenging divine authority? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing different perspectives on these ancient stories that still resonate today. The plain of Shinar buzzed with activity, unlike anything the world had ever seen. Thousands of workers moved like ants across the construction site, each playing their part in Nimrod's grand design. The tower was to be built from bricks rather than stone, a revolutionary technology that allowed for precise construction at unprecedented heights. "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly," the people declared. These weren't ordinary bricks. They were fired in kilns until they became harder than any natural stone. And instead of mortar, they used tar, a waterproof substance that created bonds so strong they seemed eternal. Every detail was planned for permanence. But listen carefully to what they said next. "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we may make a name for ourselves." This wasn't about reaching God, it was about replacing Him. They wanted to make a name for themselves that would rival the name of the Almighty. Day by day, the tower rose higher. What started as a modest structure soon became a monument to human achievement. Travelers from distant lands came just to witness this marvel of engineering. But for Nimrod and his people, height wasn't the only goal. They were building a symbol of human independence. The workers sang as they labored, their voices carrying across the plain in perfect harmony. They shared one language, one purpose, one dream. This unity was their greatest strength, but it was also what made them so dangerous. When all of humanity moves in one direction, they become virtually unstoppable. As the tower grew taller, so did the people's confidence. They began to speak openly about their plans to storm heaven itself. Some whispered about dethroning God, others talked about becoming gods themselves. The construction site had become a breeding ground for cosmic rebellion. Nimrod would climb the tower every evening to survey his kingdom from its highest point. From up there, he could see for miles in every direction. Cities, fields, rivers, all under his command. But when he looked up, he still saw empty sky. The heavens remained frustratingly out of reach. The technology they developed was remarkably advanced. They created pulley systems to lift massive loads, architectural designs that distributed weight perfectly, and organizational systems that coordinated thousands of workers. In their minds, they were proving that human intelligence could solve any problem. "Let us not be scattered over the face of the whole earth," they declared. This was their deepest fear, that they might be separated, divided, weakened. They believed that staying together in one place, under one leader, with one language, would make them invincible. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Religious ceremonies began to take place at the base of the tower, but these weren't ceremonies honoring God. They were celebrations of human achievement. The tower itself was becoming an object of worship, a testament to what humanity could accomplish without divine help. Pride was transforming into idolatry. The higher the tower grew, the bolder their claims became. They weren't just building a structure anymore. They were writing a new chapter in the relationship between heaven and earth. They were declaring that the age of divine rule was over. The age of human rule had begun. Merchants traveled from city to city, spreading news of the great tower. Tales of its height grew with each telling. Some claimed it already touched the clouds. Others insisted it would soon reach the stars. The tower was becoming a legend before it was even finished. But success bred arrogance, and arrogance bred blindness. The builders were so focused on their upward progress that they failed to notice the signs of divine displeasure gathering around them. Storm clouds began to form overhead, but they dismissed them as mere weather. High above the plains of Shinar, where no human eye could see, the Lord looked down upon the tower, rising defiantly toward his dwelling place. The Bible tells us that the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. This wasn't because God needed a closer look. It was a judicial inspection. What God saw disturbed him deeply. This wasn't just construction, it was rebellion. The unity that should have been used to honor their Creator was being weaponized against him. Every brick laid was an act of defiance. Every level completed was a step closer to cosmic treason. If, as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, God observed, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. This wasn't praise, it was a warning. United humanity had unlimited potential, but they were using that potential for evil purposes. The divine council convened to address this threat. When God says, "Come, let us go down and confuse their language," he's not speaking to angels, he's speaking to the Trinity itself. The full power of heaven was about to be unleashed against human pride. But notice God's method. He didn't send fire from heaven or open the earth to swallow the tower. He didn't destroy their technology or kill their leaders. Instead, he chose a punishment that perfectly matched their crime. They had misused their unity, so he would take their unity away. The decision was made. Language, the very tool that had enabled their cooperation, would become the instrument of their division. In one moment, the greatest strength of humanity would become their greatest weakness. The tower would fall not from external attack, but from internal confusion. Think about the genius of this judgment. God didn't have to destroy what they had built. He simply made it impossible for them to continue building. By removing their ability to communicate, he turned their organized workforce into a confused mob overnight. The timing was perfect. The tower had reached its maximum height under unified construction. Any higher, and the people might have achieved something truly dangerous. God's intervention came at the exact moment when human pride reached its peak, but before it could cause irreversible damage. This wasn't the first time God had to intervene in human affairs. From the Garden of Eden to the flood of Noah's time, the pattern was always the same. Humanity overreaches, rebellion grows, judgment comes, but each time, mercy was mixed with justice. The irony is profound. The people built the tower to make a name for themselves, but instead they gave their name to the place of their failure. Babel comes from the Hebrew word balal, meaning to confuse. Their monument to pride became a memorial to their humiliation. As God prepared to act, the workers below continued their labor, oblivious to the divine storm gathering overhead. They were about to experience something unprecedented in human history, the sudden fracturing of the human race into distinct linguistic groups. The judgment was about to fall, but it would come with a purpose. Yes, it would scatter humanity across the earth, but it would also preserve them from destroying themselves through unchecked pride. Sometimes God's judgments are also his mercies. I want to pause here and thank you, my faithful viewers, for staying with us through this incredible journey so far. We've seen the rise of Nimrod, the construction of the tower, and now we're witnessing God's response to human rebellion. But trust me, the best part of this story is still to come. Don't go anywhere. Then it happened. In a single moment that changed history forever, God confused the language of all the earth. Imagine the scene. Workers calling out instructions that suddenly made no sense. Foremen shouting orders that fell on uncomprehending ears. The perfect harmony of human cooperation dissolved into chaos. The first sign was confusion on the construction site. A worker called for more bricks, but his partner stared at him blankly. Supervisors tried to give directions, but their words had become foreign sounds. Within hours, what had been humanity's greatest achievement became a testament to their greatest failure. Panic spread through the crowds. Families tried to stay together, but even they could no longer understand each other. The unity that had taken generations to build crumbled in a single day. The tower project ground to a halt as communication became impossible. Nimrod watched his empire collapse before his eyes. The king who had once commanded nations found himself unable to communicate with his own subjects. His grand vision of human unity had been shattered by divine intervention. The mighty hunter had become the hunted. Groups began to form based on who could still understand each other. Families speaking the same new language clustered together, suspicious of those who spoke differently. Fear replaced cooperation. Division replaced unity. The seeds of every future conflict between nations were planted in that moment. The Great Migration began. Unable to work together, unable to understand each other, the people scattered across the face of the earth, exactly what they had tried to prevent. They spread out in different directions, carrying their new languages and their bitter memories of failure. The Tower of Babel stood as a monument to incomplete ambition, its unfinished top reaching uselessly toward heaven, its base surrounded by abandoned tools and empty work sites. Wind whistled through its hollow chambers, carrying the echo of voices that would never speak in unison again. But here's the remarkable thing. Even in judgment, God's purposes prevailed. The scattering of humanity fulfilled his original command to fill the earth. What they had tried to avoid through rebellion, they accomplished through judgment. God's will was done, even through their failure. The story of Babel becomes a mirror for our modern world. Today's global communications, international cooperation, and technological advancement echo the unity of Babel. But the question remains, are we using our unity to honor God or to replace him? Consider how technology today connects us globally, just as one language connected the builders of Babel. Social media, the internet, international organizations, all create unity. But like the tower builders, we must ask ourselves, what are we building together and why? The pride that drove Nimrod still drives human hearts today. The desire to make a name for ourselves resonates in our celebrity culture, our pursuit of fame, our obsession with legacy. But Babel teaches us that true greatness comes not from reaching up to heaven, but from heaven reaching down to us. Nimrod's story is ultimately a warning about the seductive power of human achievement without divine guidance. Every skyscraper, every technological breakthrough, every human accomplishment has the potential to become either a Tower of Babel or a temple of praise to God. The confusion of languages at Babel was reversed at Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit enabled the apostles to speak in tongues that all could understand. What human pride had fractured, divine love restored. The real unity humanity seeks is found not in rebellion against God, but in relationship with him. So what do you think? Does the story of Nimrod and the Tower of Babel speak to our modern world? Are we building towers of human achievement that honor God, or monuments to our own pride? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story has moved you, challenged you, or made you think differently about human ambition and divine authority, please subscribe to Veil of the Bible and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this timeless message. Your support helps us continue bringing these powerful stories to life. Before you go, make sure you check out our latest video exploring another fascinating biblical character. The stories never end, and the truths they contain are more relevant today than ever. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of history's most dramatic confrontations between earth and heaven.